Hi, this is Jeff Scott from the talk show Watching You. And what I want to do today is to just give you a behind the scenes look at how we put together one of these shows. There's a lot more to it than just two people talking, but I add a lot of animations and titles and graphics and little things like that that make the show look very unique. What I've got here is actually an opening sequence. This is an animation that we used for the tribute to Hotter Than Hell, which I believe was episode 18. Okay? And as I play this, you'll notice that this is a promo actually. You'll notice that all these characters kind of animate in. Peter actually in two pieces, and then finally Ace comes animating in through there. And the way that I do this is all of these separate pieces here were taken. I found the original photograph, which was color and much nicer looking than the album cover. And in Photoshop, I just kind of stitched one out separately and made a JPEG for each one. So as these characters come in, there's a code for each one. So I'm just going to click on Ace for a minute, just to show you what's happening here. So you'll notice that we have this is like a little timeline, okay? And these are called keyframes. And this keyframe basically controls the animation. So these keyframes here are the end of an animation, and these keyframes here show the beginning of a sequence. And what it really does is it controls the position, which is where he is on the frame, the scale, which is how big he is, and also a rotation in terms of degrees. So he does almost a full 180, I guess. Okay, so the way I'd start this animation is I would start with Ace in this position, and then I would lock in these keyframes. So this is where I want the animation to end. Okay, and then I would go back so far, and I would lock in these keyframes, and then I would add certain numbers like scale, for instance. You'll notice the scale is 5.5, which means it's 5% of the original photo. And if you just watch that number right here, you'll notice that as I scroll through, that number gets bigger, okay, which just means that Ace is getting bigger in the frame. This number down here is rotation. It's a degree value. So as we start down here, you'll notice that degree number is changing, okay, and this is the code that Premiere uses to animate that picture and put it exactly where I want it, okay. So to play back the whole sequence again, okay, we just have, oops, I'm going to go back just a little bit further. Okay, so this is a promo. We have a title on the next Watching You. The background is the album cover, and then we have all the band members coming in, being animated, sometimes in pieces, and then finally Ace comes in like that. So what I would do is I would render that as a video file, and then I'd use that later rather than having to come back to this and all those separate animations, which takes up a lot of memory. So if you can render that and use it later just as a video file with all the animations pre-done, it's going to take up a lot less memory in your program, and when you're editing, things will just go a lot smoother. Okay, this is a different Premiere file. This is the actual final file that I use to put the show together. So what you can see right here is that animation sequence. So again, you don't see the animations. You don't see those codes for animation because that's all been rendered. Okay, so this is just a file that I plugged in. You can hear some music in the background. Okay. At the top of the show, we had a viewer over in Holland by the name of Ben Van Belzen, and he sent us a neat little clip, and we certainly love to include all our friends from all over the world who enjoy the show, watch the show, and they share their thoughts and ideas with us. So he had made a little promo video, and we shared that on our page, but we also popped it at the very beginning of the show. And then we have our opening sequence with the... Okay, so that has the iconic music, which is actually my own original riff. It's kind of based on some other Kiss songs that I've done. The original idea for that song was for a contest that Kiss had. I think it was called the Ultimate Fan Video Contest, and you had to make a video and send it in. So I actually wrote a song, and I kind of borrowed those chords from Lover All I Can. So if you find this sounds kind of like Lover All I Can, there's a reason for that. It does sound like that. But anyway, I just use the tail end of that for opening sequence. Sometimes I use something different. If it's a special show, I'll use a different sound file. But for 90% of the shows, we use that same one. Right here, you can see this little record. Okay, and this is an animation as well. But the animation comes on top of this, which is a file, a video file. And then it kind of goes on to this. So I couldn't really do that animation earlier. Okay, this is an animation that I had to have in the final cut. Okay. Now there's also a number of different things that we have in here. For instance, this banner. I always like to throw a banner in at the very top of the show, just to remind viewers of the show topic and maybe to remind us of how many episodes we've done. I think I just cut episode 22. So not bad for a couple years in production. I know some other people have done numerous hundreds of episodes. But we believe in quality, not quantity. So if we get together, we're averaging now about one show a month, every 2 months. I'm not really sure. We're not really sure how many more topics there are. But this is on the anniversary of the release of Hotter Than Hell. So this little banner kind of came in there. Now, the other elements of this little record stayed around. And maybe I should have had that disappear. But anyway, that stuck around for a while. What you have here, I'm just going to block out a few things. Okay, so this backdrop, except for the record, this entire backdrop was made in Photoshop. And what I did was I had the album cover for Hotter Than Hell. And then using the text tool, I just added our logo, Watchin You. The font is called Dynasty, as in Dynasty. But if you want to find a really cool KISS font, just look for Dynasty, D-I-E, nasty. Anyway, that's the one that I use. And down here, also using a text file or a text tool, my name and my location, Jeff Gray's name and his location. And we use the same TVs for a lot of shows, but every now and again I like to get funky and find something else. So I went online and found these two TV, or I found this TV. I actually changed the color in Photoshop, so I don't know. I'm not sure if it was pink or orange to begin with, but I just put that there. Then I copied it over and just changed the color, so we had an orange one and a kind of fuchsia. These little screens here are not necessarily black. There's just nothing there. That's an empty window. So I actually have to use a special eraser tool to erase out that window. And then I don't save it as a JPEG, but I save it as a Photoshop file so that when it comes into Adobe Premiere, it actually comes in as a layer. And that means that I can put something behind this, which are Jeff Scott and Jeff Gray. Okay, so we're actually sitting, we're not necessarily in the screen as we are behind the screen. There may be bits of our video that kind of seeps out over the edges. So that's why I want this transparent, so we get the shape of the screen rather than just a regular box. So what I have then, and you can look at the timeline down here. So here's my backdrop, and then I have this file, which is, I believe, Jeff Gray, and then this file here is me. The way that we do this is we meet on Skype so we can hear each other and we can see each other. But I'm recording a video file onto my computer using my webcam, and Jeff Gray is recording to his computer using a webcam. So when the show is done, he will upload his video to a particular site, and then he'll let me know when it's there and I can download it. We also have to do a synchronization at the beginning, which means I go 1, 2, 3, and we both clap at the same time. And by using that clap, I'm able to synchronize the two files, and then I just clip off the leader at the top, and then we start our show. The synchronization is not always perfect, and I don't think it's so much us as it is the program. Again, as I say, adding all these animations and resizing a lot of these videos, it takes up a lot of the memory in the computer, and it makes the program work a lot harder. Sometimes by the end of the show, I'll be talking, and Jeff Gray's, we hear Jeff Gray's voice, or Jeff is talking and you hear my voice. We're completely out of sync. Sometimes there's just no way around it, and rather than dump the show, we just cut it and put it up there, and that's just the way it is. One thing I have to do, for instance, if I click onto my video here, something I have to do is I have to scale it. Okay, so I might be looking at a file that's this big. So I have to scale that down in order to fit into the window. And then I have to put it into position, so I might have been in the middle. So I have to move that over as well as the height. Okay, and the same thing with Jeff Gray. So I basically just find a spot for those two to go. But I do that by looking at this particular file. So I can see that I still need to adjust that back a little bit. Okay, and might need to scale it a little bit. I don't want it too big. We want to see that nice, beautiful Empire State Building photo shoot in the background. I used to use a hand-painted Love Gun backdrop, and then I got this poster last winter. Just love it. And Jeff is still using his hand-painted Destroyer, and I have to pat myself on the back for those. So I hand-painted the Love Gun, and then he wanted one, so I hand-painted the Destroyer, and I actually sent that to him through a friend who was just happened to be going to Nova Scotia. So anyway, this is how we put the show together. And once I get all these elements put together, there's not a whole lot more. The rest of it is conversation. Every now and again, something will kind of come in. For instance, there are some pictures here, and these are pictures from the Hall of Fame induction. Okay, so I just kind of put them there. Okay, and I scaled them big enough so that they're actually covering the background. The background is still there, and we are still there as well. But as long as these pictures are scaled big enough, you just won't see us in the background. We're still there. Okay, so I just kind of scale them up. And sometimes I'll add little video clips, and sometimes I'll add audio, and there's a whole bunch of things that can go in there. This one looks pretty clean. I'm just going to zoom right to the end. Okay, and then the end of the show looks like I added some kind of a picture here. It's a picture. It's been moved, so the program can't really find it. And then we always end off the show with an animation of some sort. I think I went back to that record. Yeah. Sometimes I use the same animation from the beginning. This one here was just the record and All the Way by Kiss. So the great thing about this show is that each one is so different. I never know what I'm going to do. Sometimes it's because I've discovered something completely new and exciting to do with Adobe Premiere, or something new and exciting has happened. We never know. Every show is completely different. Like people sending us things. I'm just experimenting with some animation. Something's happened in the world of Kiss, so we have something new to show in pictures. There's always something different in each. That's what makes each show very unique. Okay. In the end, also I just want to show you there's an audio mixer here, and I've got these levels turned all down so that I could talk over. But I'm mixing a lot of things here. I'm mixing Ben's audio, my audio, the main theme, All the Way, Jeff Gray's audio. Sometimes I've got 8 or 9 things here that have to be mixed. In the end, what I do is I render. So I just basically tell Adobe Premiere to make a video file, and I tell it what type to make. Usually it's an MPEG 4. Dimensions are usually 1280 by 720p. So it is in high resolution, which takes an awful long time to render. Usually, like a 1 hour show like this, it can render for up to 6-7 hours. I've set the thing up and gone to bed. Get up next morning, it's still rendering. And while it does that, the fan is blowing and the computer is hotter than hell. And which just shows me that I need a better system for doing this. This is just a laptop, so I may invest in some super high-tech desktop computer. I've made one film, and I'm planning to make another one, so I wouldn't even attempt to make another film using this software on my laptop. It's just not suitable for it. And then I upload to YouTube, and it's funny, at my home, if I upload to YouTube, it can take about 6 or 7 hours. If I put it on a stick and go to work, I can upload it in about 25 minutes. So obviously the internet connection at work is much super duper faster than the one at home. So anyway, that's just something that I do with Watchin You show. All the different elements that go into it. We have a lot of fun. So just thought I'd show you some behind the scenes on how we do Watchin You.